Do you feel that African Americans should go out and own a gun because the racial tensions are escalating?
No, because you're asking for war. You're asking for confrontation.
For Complex News, I'm Pierce Simpson. In America, the idea of gun ownership is rooted in the fabric of its DNA. Dating back to the genesis of the American Revolution, the right to bear arms is scripted in the Constitution, spoken in certainty like the ability of the amendment that comes before it. However, while America boasts patriotic ideals, that idea is often catered to white Americans. Since the eradication of slavery, Black Americans have fought a much tougher battle towards being first-class citizens. And that first-class access also includes gun ownership. 250 years after first being sold into slavery and 3 years after the end of the Civil War, Blacks were granted citizenship. In the 1860s and 1870s, Black Americans began to mobilize and create Black militias. America's resistance to that mobilization was through Black codes, which was legislation passed to restrict free Black men from owning guns. White vigilantes would raid homes with impunity, cultivating a culture of hatred and white supremacy that manifested itself in groups like the KKK, which was formed in 1865. Across generations since, it's been much of the same. With the increased racial tensions stoked by Donald Trump, Black gun ownership has risen across the country since the 2016 election. Black Americans are taking more control when it comes to guns and have chosen to align themselves with new age militias. Philip Smith, president of the National African American Gun Owners Association, told Politico that his organization's annual membership has increased as much as 2,000 new members per day. That was a figure he used to see annually. We spoke with John Grandmaster J. Fitzgerald Johnson, the founder and supreme leader of the NFAC, the Not Fucking Around Coalition, about the topic at hand. The NFAC has really fortified itself and continue to build a bigger following each and every time its name is in the press. So for me and our audience, take us through the genesis of creating the Black Militia.
Well, it actually started out with folks just in conversation, just watching the political landscape, watching the racial climate, just watching how our society responded to some things that we thought had been gone for a long time. We started to see those manifest themselves again. So it started with conversation. It started with conversation with like-minded individuals who were not activists, just regular folks, responsible citizens, homeowners, gun owners, voters, things like that, with a common background who shared the same view that, things can't go back to the way they were. But then things started to heat up. And when I say heat up, we're going back to 2014. With all of the first series of high-profile shootings, Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, and then the list goes on. The Emmanuel 9, Romaine Brisbane, it goes on. And when that happened, it was how America responded. Began the conversation of what do we do if nothing changes? When we came out of the quarantine, we thought we were emerging into a world where the only thing that we needed was a job and the ability not to get sick. But instead, what we found out was that we had walked back into an environment where some of these ancient racial practices that we thought had been, for the most part, eliminated or addressed by laws, seemed to be on the uprise. Right. Things were just being Black. People getting lynched again. We're looking at increasing police brutality and shootings with these unanswered questions, sometimes blatantly in our face. And it reached a point when we started seeing white militia showing up, they're not challenged by the police. No matter what reason they stated for being there, we're supposed to live in a society where everything is equal. And you've got white militia showing up at places where the object of protest is a Black man being killed by the police. And we have to wonder, who are these folks and why isn't the police bothering them? Yeah. So the building of the militia starts with the common understanding that there is something egregiously wrong, and that we must take our grievances before the government in such a fashion that if they don't agree with us, as per the Constitution, to maintain a free state for everyone, that we should be willing to lay down our lives for that cause.
So Grandmaster Jay, what was that direct message that you wanted to send? Was it that we're not fearful anymore? What was that direct message?
The direct message that we wanted to send was not only are we not fearful anymore, but we are armed and prepared to defend ourselves. But our message is to let them know there's an organized resistance that's willing to work along with you for the preservation of our people or work against you. Nothing's changed in 60 years. So we've got to say something, and we got to do more than just sing and talk about it and have empty slogans. Because if you've noticed, everywhere that we've gone, we elicit a different behavior, and we get the information that we come for. And on top of that, we're getting the respect as a people that we deserve. So that's the message we wanted to send, and we wanted to send it not to all of them, but those who align with the ideals of the KKK. If you still on that program, we came to talk to you.
Grandmaster Jay, from a holistic standpoint and just Black gun ownership in America in general, some research I was doing, 4 out of 10 households own guns. About of that statistic, only 25% of that is Black Americans that own guns in their household. If you had to give advice to people who are looking to bear arms and the importance of guns in Black households, how would you speak to that?
I would say 2 words to them. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor was just like you, at home, minding her own business. No criminal record, no drugs in the house, nothing. Right. That's you. Think about what happens if they come in your house. Anybody, whether it's the police or anyone, how are you going to defend your family? Because 911, as we've seen, could also be a death sentence for you. If you're not paying attention to the world around you and the leadership that you're under right now and the way that they're modifying this society, you don't think that they'll come in your house and give you something against your will or do something to you against your will in the name of the law, and you're not prepared to defend yourself, you haven't read the Constitution. You might want to check it out. Let me give you this piece right here. In the last 4 months, the number of gun sales for African Americans has gone up 52%. What we're seeing, though, is that all of a sudden gun stores aren't selling guns to Black people like they was before, or Black people are encountering some strange obstacles that were never there before when they tried to go buy a weapon, because the interest is there. I think that the time now is more imperative than ever that you arm yourselves.
In 1967, the Milford Act was signed into law by Governor Ronald Reagan. It was a bill that California made open carry illegal. The bill's goal was to disarm the Black Panther Party. The NRA supported the bill. On August 25th, Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old from Illinois, murdered 2 protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Those protesters were bringing light to the injustices that continue to plague the African American community. On Sunday evening, footage was released of Jacob Blake, who was going into his car but was shot 7 times in the back by Kenosha police. Kyle Rittenhouse walked past police with an assault rifle. According to reports online, Kyle Rittenhouse was thanked by the police officers and even hydrated for his participation as a white militia.
Need water? There's guys to our right. You need water. We'll throw you one.
Thank you. All right, come on, guys. Let's get out of here. Damn. Which way should we go?
We'll give you a couple. Thank you. We got a couple. We got to save a couple, but we'll give you a couple. We appreciate you guys. We really do.
It's been almost 200 days since Breonna Taylor was murdered at the hands of police in Louisville, Kentucky. Grandmaster Jay and NFAC have been on the front lines in helping secure justice. While Jay is ushering a new era coalition, Derek Grace II is the son of a former police officer who's taking more of a grassroots approach and providing education to new gun owners. His main point of instruction, de-escalation. I saw a 2016 video of you teaching your then 7-year-old son everything about, different guns. And he's breaking down where it's manufactured, how many clips in the magazine. You're just very hands-on with him in regards to that.
My family is deep in law enforcement. So my great-grandfather was one of the first Tampa Police Department officers, the Black ones, and for the Harrisburg County Sheriff's Office. He retired from both departments.
Yep.
And so guns has always been a part of our life. My pops is retired Secret Service.
What's some of the biggest things you want to get across to your students when it comes to those situations? What's one thing you kind of drive into their
Bro, I've just seen the difference in us questioning, us wanting to get to know more, us at the gun range, us getting our licenses, and just us practicing, our amendment to bear arms and to get out in the streets. And not saying we're looking for it, but we're gonna meet the opposition at whatever level they want to meet at, if that ever is the case.
Throughout the course of American history, there's been these systemic rules and policies put into place to stop people of color from owning guns legally. As a gun owner yourself, what type of issues have you come across over the years when it comes to owning firearms?
I really haven't come in contact with many, period, because my pops has taught me certain things, as I evolve to a man. I mean, he still teaches me certain things. So I'm not gonna say I'm the best at it. You know, I'm not lawyer status, but I know how to deal with law enforcement for the most part. And then, bro, I've noticed the energy typically change when you articulate a certain way. They peep the verbiage. They begin to realize, like, you know, you're not dealing with somebody who's naive about how this goes. So make sure that you hold yourself accountable and handle this the right way, or it may end up being a lawyer situation at a later date.
For somebody who's on the fence about owning a gun and they happen to be African American in this country, what advice would you give them? What would you say to them to kind of get them off the fence into legal gun ownership?
Big bro, the biggest thing I would say is America is built off violence and entrepreneurship. So if you're not in a position where you're programming yourself to get your bread in order to take care of your people and yourself and to protect your people and yourself, then I honestly feel like, you know, you're a liability at that point. Like, and I'm not telling everybody to run out and get a gun, but I'm telling you, like, train on how to move if somebody introduces a gun. I got a love-hate relationship with 2020. Like, 2020 turned up on a business level, but as far as moral and ethics, it's getting worse and worse every day. So I urge everybody to protect themselves and their family. And if you're not, like, the gun is a part of American society. You can't escape it. So either arm yourself or figure out what you're going to do if somebody arm themselves and they come in your way.
Some may speak for ownership and advocacy, while others have differing perspectives. Being somewhere near the latter is Chicagoan and two-time Grammy Award-winning lyricist Rhymefest. Being from Chicago, I'm sure you are well aware of the notion of gun violence in the city, how it's kind of permeated throughout the culture of Chicago, especially from the outside looking in. A lot of people look at it in different ways. From your perspective, what do you think the biggest issue is rooted in the gun violence in Chicago? Do you think it's just poverty? Do you think it's the segregation naturally in the city? What would you say is the biggest thing?
Well, the one myth I want to dispel is that poverty leads to violence, because that always marks a certain type of people, you know what I mean, as more prone to be violent. I've had the blessing to be able to travel the world and see the people in the poorest conditions that don't kill one another. Right. That don't hurt one another, you know, and this is from Africa to Colombia to Peru, you know, it's like, and they're in more desperate straits, and they don't use that as a reason to hurt one another. So when we talk about gun violence, I think we have to take a real serious look at our culture. Mm-hmm. We have to take a serious look at our music. We have to take a look at what we have programmed ourselves, how we've programmed ourselves, and how we've romanticized violence in our communities, in our families, and in our country.
Yeah, you make some interesting points there. I think that a lot of times music can just easily be a scapegoat. So for you and your perspective, do you feel like we kind of glamorize too much of the gun violence? Is that what you're saying when it comes to music?
Well, we want to keep in mind that there's other factors involved. I don't want to discredit other factors. So if you look at Flint, Michigan, where the water is still bad, and we know that people that are drinking that water with the lead in it, you know what I mean, have less acumen, you know what I'm saying, in terms of just everyday functioning. Now you give that person a gun and an emotional challenge, you know what I'm saying, and pop, you know. But when we're talking about music, we're talking about what adds fuel to a burning fire, right? And look at the artists that come after us. They continue the tradition. I maintain, bro, that in hip hop, we've cursed our generations, 7 generations before and 7 generations after. We've cursed ourselves. Maya Angelou says words are real things. Words matter. Words create. You know, one of the things I say, when you write rhymes and you are writing, you're spelling. When you spit rhymes, you're casting a spell. Now ask yourself, what is the spell that we've been casting on ourselves for the last 50 years with rap music?
You arrived at gunpoint in your car. Guy came to the window, and I thought it was interesting that the tweet that you made afterwards, you essentially said, "I'm fighting for you, but you decided to rob me." When that moment happened, what was your initial thought process? Because you've been somebody that wants to advocate and kind of eradicate the gun violence in Chicago, and then for you to for you to be a victim of that had to be a conflicting feeling for you, right?
You know what's interesting, man, and I just want to get it straight. Like, in terms of gun violence in Chicago, I've never really gotten involved with gun violence in particular. I'm more interested in human development. Because, you know what I'm saying? We can do gun violence all day and you're not going to get nowhere if the human being is not developed. So the mentoring that I do with young people is more spiritual and more like, what is your gift? And how do we take your gift? And if you start expanding on that, you won't even want a gun. You won't even be thinking about robbing nobody. In terms of my particular experience, the experience really was about when I went to who I thought was the authorities, which was when I went to the police to report it, and how they treated me, you know what I'm saying, in terms of, we're not making no reports for no robberies. You know what I'm saying? Like, at gunpoint and nothing else. Like, I wasn't worth it as a taxpayer, you know? And so I learned a lot about that. Really reset my life in a way that I learned that only we can cure us. There is no police. Right. There is no government authority that's going to change it. It's only us.
Because in that situation, they definitely try to treat you like a second-class citizen.
Try.
They did. They wouldn't even try. They did, you know? So,
they do that. And so unless we take our own power back, it's no way you can change a police force. Yeah. We pay them. Right. They are our servants. But if we ain't together amongst one another, if we don't know how to have justice, like communal justice amongst one another, then you can't control municipalities unless you can control your family and your community.
But Jay, if a guy came up to you and said, I only feel safe, or a woman, I only feel safe walking down my block if I have a gun on me, what would be your response to that, especially in the city that you come from?
Well, I would try to help the brother understand that the fact is his life is in more danger with the gun than without. When I got robbed, if the guy would have saw me with the gun and had the drop on me, his fear would have made him shoot first. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we think it goes into the arrogance we have about our own ability.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? The arrogance we have and the romanticization of firearms, but the arrogance we have about our own ability makes us think nobody can get the drop on us. If you're sitting in the car, you're a sitting duck. You know what I mean? You're better off complying. You know, we're dealing with police fear right now. You know what I'm saying? The police are afraid, right? My man Philando Castro, he had his gun permit on him. He tried to let them know, but that right there is what got him shot. You know what I'm saying? And the NRA didn't come to his defense. None of these organizations came to his defense. So I would tell the brother, there are things more powerful than a gun that you can use as self-defense. And in fact, the gun lessens your chance of making it out of a violent encounter.
Since 2016, the election of President Trump, statistics show that there's been a greater ownership of guns by African Americans in this country. And I think that's a direct correlation to the increased racial tensions in this country. Do you feel that African Americans should go out and own a gun because the racial tensions are escalating?
No, because you're asking for war. You're asking for confrontation. As we talk about de-escalation, you know, what you gonna let man, a lot of us are not even voting. And you're gonna let the election of someone trigger you that you don't even know, won't even meet. We talk about how politics is so ineffectual. I hear that in our communities a lot, especially in our culture, hip hop culture. And how you gonna say that and then go get a gun because somebody got elected?
Right.
It seems hypocritical to me. It seems to me that we use anything as a reason. We use fear as a reason to react. And that fear has never won a war.
Man, I appreciate you stopping by, chopping it up with us here at Complex. Hope you stay safe and sound in Wyoming, man. And I appreciate you giving us your time.
Hey, man. Love, bro. Peace.
Likewise, man.